The contents of the following program are not intended to substitute for the advice of your healthcare provider, and the producers of this series assume no liability for the use or misuse of the material presented. Creation or evolution, design or random chance. They say it all began with a Big Bang. But when we look at the amazing human body, the answer is obvious. The complexity of the design exceeds anything man has ever made. The body could only have been designed by the master designer we read about in the Bible. Divine design.
Hello, I'm Patty Barnes, Director of the Midwifery Program at Heartland College. If you recall from our last session, the baby was at 16 weeks. Although the eyes are still closed, there is a sensitivity to bright lights in the environment. This reveals the importance of establishing a regular schedule so the baby begins to distinguish between night and day. If you are a person that stays up all night, you can expect your baby to do the same. This is why it's so very important to keep regular hours for bedtime in order to train your baby properly while in utero. It will make things a lot easier when he or she is born. At around 17 to 18 weeks, the mother begins to feel movement, even though the baby has been moving for quite some time now. An ultrasound is capable at this time of determining the gender. At 18 weeks, the baby has grown to nearly 6 inches and weighs almost a half a pound. Now, everyone knows what happens to your skin when you stay for a long period of time in the water. It wrinkles up like a prune, doesn't it? God has taken care of this problem too. It is around the 18th week that He provides the baby with a creamy, waxy-like substance called Vernix caseosa. This is from the Latin words Vernix, meaning varnish, and caseosa, meaning cheese. This covers the baby's skin and protects it during the remaining time in the womb. But this is no mere skin cream. It is also made up of antibiotics that protect the baby from skin infections. Enzymes, proteins, and other valuable properties are also found in Vernix. It was reported in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology that a number of immunity factors are present in Vernix. This is why so many healthcare providers choose not to wash it off immediately after birth, but rub it into the baby's skin. Amazingly, Vernix caseosa is unique to humans, not being found in any other mammals, including primates. Jesus, the creator of all life, made special provision for the human baby. Indeed, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. At 20 weeks, we have reached the halfway point of pregnancy, which is generally considered to last 40 weeks. The uterus should measure about 20 centimeters, and from this time on, the uterus should be growing 1 centimeter per week. At 20 weeks, the baby is about 7 to 8 inches long and weighs anywhere from 9 to 10 ounces. Toenails and fingernails are growing, and the baby's skin is getting thicker. The baby is becoming a little more active, and you might begin to feel him hiccuping, a sort of rhythmic movement or spasms. This is normal and is caused by amniotic fluid entering and exiting the baby's lungs. This actually helps develop the baby's respiratory functions. At this point, the baby's brain is in high gear as it further develops the senses of hearing, sight, touch, smelling, and taste. The sounds the baby hears now will be ones he will identify with more readily after birth. He will also begin hearing and recognizing your voice. Pathways in the brain are being formed that will affect the baby's attitude and disposition and moods. In Adventist Home, page 258, we read,
Every woman about to become a mother, whatever may be her surroundings, should encourage constantly a happy, cheerful, contented disposition, knowing that for all her efforts in this direction, she will be repaid tenfold in the physical as well as the moral character of her offspring.
Kathleen Thomas, a cognitive development specialist at the University of Minnesota, has reported that the lab experiments have clearly shown that babies can remember and recognize their mother's voice almost immediately after birth. They will also prefer a book that they had read to them repeatedly in the womb. In the book, Mind, Character, and Personality, Volume 1, page 140, we read,
What an enormous weight of responsibility rests upon parents when we consider that the course pursued by them before the birth of their children has very much to do with the development of their character after their birth.
At 22 to 24 weeks of pregnancy, the baby will have grown to about 10 to 11 inches long and now weighs from 1 to 1.5 pounds. The eyebrows and eyelashes are now fully formed, and the eyelids can be clearly seen. At this point, the baby may begin sucking his thumb. Thumb sucking helps improve the baby's hand muscle, coordination, and prepares the baby for nursing after birth. Amazingly, at 24 weeks, a baby has a 50% chance of survival outside the womb. Let us move forward to about 26 to 28 weeks. The average size is now 14 to 15 inches, and the weight is about 2 to 2.25 pounds. The eyes are open now. And by the way, did you know that all Caucasian babies are born with blue eyes? They won't get their final color until months after they are born. This is because they are not born with enough pigment called melanin, unlike African American, Hispanic, and Asian babies who have more melanin at birth. The viability or survival rate outside the womb now increases to about 70 to 90%, although they will need probably a lot of support in the neonatal intensive care unit. One of the reasons for this increased survival rate is because a substance called surfactant is beginning to develop. This is another wonder of God's design. Its purpose is to keep the lung tissue from sticking together, helping the lungs to inflate. Imagine if you had 2 wet sheets of paper and you put them together, they would stick because of the surface tension, wouldn't they? Well, the surfactant is designed to reduce that surface tension between the tissues. And the surfactant level does not reach its peak until about 37 weeks. This is why babies born before 37 weeks are considered premature. In Job 27:3, we read,
All the while my breath is in me, and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils.
The word spirit here comes from the Hebrew word ruach, which means wind or breath of life that comes from God. He not only gives the baby the breath of life, but provides everything necessary to keep the breath sustained. Okay, now we come to weeks 30 to 32. The baby may weigh between 3 and 4 pounds and reach 16 to 17 inches. As you can see, the size is gaining rapidly. There is now less space in the uterus, and the mother might feel like she's running out of room in her belly. Generally, baby will have settled into a head-down position by now, but that is what they naturally tend to do. Only about 5% or less of babies will assume a breech position by full term. Head down is the best position, of course, making the delivery a little easier. Hands are fully formed by this time, and the baby may be seen on an ultrasound clasping his hands together or grabbing his feet. I have seen them taking hold of the cord. This is all a part of muscle, nerve, and brain development. Now, something else may happen about this time. Have you ever heard of the term Braxton Hicks? A man by that name discovered that expectant mothers sometimes had contractions that did not lead to labor. These contractions can appear about this time, but they have been known to occur even earlier. These have also been considered practice contractions, as they will increase and intensify the closer you get to delivery. These contractions are not painful, but they apparently have a purpose: toning up the muscles in the uterus and helping the blood circulation to the placenta. At 34 to 35 weeks, the baby should be about 18 inches and weigh between 4 and 5 pounds. Fat deposits are beginning to develop, which will help regulate the baby's temperature. The amount of fat will not be quite enough to keep him warm if delivered at this time, so an incubator might be necessary. The volume of amniotic fluid will generally peak at this point to about a quart, and then gradually decrease until birth. This decrease will allow more space for the baby. Too much fluid or too little fluid could be a problem, but fortunately, these conditions are somewhat rare. Now, could this optimal amount of amniotic fluid just happen by chance? Obviously not. This is more evidence of God's divine design. This brings us to our last 4 weeks of pregnancy, providing you don't go over. The baby may grow a half a pound or more per week, now putting on that necessary fat to maintain the right body temperature. The baby is perfectly formed at this point, but we would like to reach at least 37 weeks before delivery, which will allow for the lungs to strengthen and the proper amount of surfactant to be present. His movement will probably decline somewhat as he gets settled into the fetal position. Okay, you're finally here. Full term, 40 weeks. However, there is no problem if you should happen to go 42 weeks. But problems could arise if you go any longer than that. Only about 5% of women give birth on their due date. So don't be surprised if you don't give birth right on your estimated due date. On average, the baby should weigh anywhere from 7 to 8 pounds, but could be more or less. His length will approximately be 20 to 22 inches. Amazingly, the top of the baby's head is soft and pliable, and the bones at the ridge of the skull are not yet fused together, so that they can overlap slightly during that tight delivery. This is another provision of our all-wise Creator, making it easier and safer for the baby to pass through the birth canal. All systems are functional and ready to go. Lord willing, we will explore in the future some amazing transition that must take place at delivery. In Isaiah 44:24 we read,
Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth abroad the earth by myself.
Join me next time for more of God's divine design.